The first season of Pose ends on a high point, with everyone finding themselves at a place of growth. Blanca is House Mother of the Year, and it seems like everything is right in the world. Season 1 ends in 1987, and Season 2 picks back up in 1990. Within this 3-year jump, the political climate in America got increasingly worse. AIDS continued to wreak havoc on the LGBTQ+ community at a disproportionate rate, and the government still seemed to show extreme apathy in regards to their deaths. The first episode of Season 2, titled Acting Up, begins with the scene of Pray Tell and Blanca visiting Hart Island for the first time in hopes of visiting the grave of a friend who died of AIDS. This island off of New York City was used to bury the deceased, whose families couldn't afford a proper burial or who didn't want to claim them.
Who wants to come to the most remote part of New York?
You think people will come to pay their respects?
Out of sight, out of mind. I'm tired. I've been to 3 funerals this week. 3. Where's the cure?
Look, we got to keep it together today, Pray. We got a long day ahead of us.
I know. I'm sorry, it upsets me.
Once they arrive on the island, they make the gruesome discovery that there are no actual graves. Makeshift coffins made of plywood are being stacked on top of one another in a mass grave, and separate from that, the bodies of AIDS victims are being quarantined away from the other graves because they're afraid that their corpses are still infectious. To make things even worse, there appears to be no attempt to give the victims any kind of identification, so Blanca and Pray Tell cannot pay respects to their friend as they had wanted at his grave.
Welcome to Hart Island, just a mass grave of people whose families couldn't afford a burial or unclaimed bodies from the morgue.
When they go to the memorial of rocks that people have placed for loved ones, we can somewhat see the scope of just how many victims are buried on the island and have been disrespected by this system. This opening scene creates a stark reminder of the cultural and social context that Season 2 is going to be taking place in. In Season 1, discussion of AIDS was mainly kept to the personal experiences and relationships of the main characters. Blanca and Pray Tell both receive positive results from tests for the virus, and additionally, Pray Tell loses a partner to it. By Season 2, the community has moved on from just having unbelievable sadness and fear about their futures, to having anger because it seems like no one else cares or is even trying to help them. In 1987, there were some protests and activism surrounding the pandemic, but by 1990, the movement was a large and loud force, with the organization ACT UP being one of the main organizers. They were extremely vocal about their disgust with the government and the CDC, whose slow actions were killing people. ACT UP was based in New York City, which is also where Pose takes place. The scene on Hart Island effectively sets up this season, because it takes Blanca and Pray Tell beyond the ballroom community that they're directly involved in, and shows the full scope of what they're up against. It also shows the government's complete disregard for their community, and makes them rightfully angry with the situation. This anger is what fuels Pray Tell's activism with ACT UP, which becomes a big part of his personal growth throughout Season 2. You can see the fear in both Blanca and Pray Tell's eyes when they first see the mass grave, because it's like a wake-up call of not only what their future could be, seen as they're both personally HIV positive, but additionally the future of so many people they know. Before, the epidemic seemed more like an abstract force that was just affecting their direct circle, but looking at Hart Island showed them how it was all so much bigger than just themselves. Today, there are over 1 million people buried at Hart Island, yet not very many people have ever even heard of it. So the writers felt it was very important to include this scene as a history lesson for viewers. In the big picture, this is kind of what Pose as a whole does. Ballroom and a lot of trans history in general has been cast aside by the mainstream, so not a lot of people are knowledgeable about it. Beyond being significant in the world of Pose and as a call to action for the characters, this scene at Hart Island is a reminder for the audience of the sad and difficult history that we ignore. Life was never just dressing up for balls and going to disco nights in Greenwich Village.
So what now?
We pray. We pray for strength to keep fighting.
The LGBTQ community has faced so many underreported hardships, and Pose brings these issues to the forefront decades later so that we can acknowledge and learn from the wrongdoings that society has inflicted upon the community. Pose exposes viewers to the stories of communities and people who our textbooks and history classes have forgotten. And the scene on Hart Island is just one example of this compassionate and thankful storytelling.